Hello, it is the Abstractionist. I'm here with Lilith, the Lilith reading. For this reading, I am using the Cameron Tarot, Uncommon Tarot, Box of Emotions. Where is the other one? And my lovely Ritual Tarot. So this one takes a second to get out, so we'll do this. So we're going to do this. So this is not astrologically telling you where Lilith is. This is just like messages from that point, from that energy. Your ancestors, guides, spiritual guardians of the highest order, please help me deliver the messages of Lilith. Please impart messages that are for the highest good. Let any of the lower vibrational beings attached to this embodiment dissipate as we move forward with the reading. Please grant me spiritual protection and enlightenment so that I can deliver the messages. Provide me with the wisdom necessary for this reading. Thank you. So, touch could be very significant at this time. Touch could be a very significant lesson. We do kind of put Lilith in that sexual category. We do put her in that sexual box. And so touch could be very important. Allowing yourself to be touched, and not just physically touched, emotionally, spiritually, psychically touched. These are all forms of touch, you know? They're forms of touch. So what is touching you? Right? What are you allowing to touch you? What is touching you? What is allowing? What are you allowing to touch you? What is trying to touch you? Let's go from there. Let's see. Let's put you like this one. Okay, we have swords, most likely, probably the page. Then we have alchemist, Temperance card, 2 of coins, 5 of swords. The initial thing is I got is don't touch me. So some of you guys could be going through the more contentious elements of a relationship, more contentious elements of touch, consent, of bodily knowing when it comes to, as it relates to other people, where you begin and where you end. And you're willing to enforce that. You're willing to make it known what you do and do not want. There's a hard boundary here. There's a hard boundary there when it comes to being, it's just a hard boundary. There's a no there. I think it could be anger at people. It could be that. However, most likely it's just kind of a laying down the law, making sure that you are not repeating old cycles. So some of you guys, this is going to be a pretty triggering, I guess, reading. Some of you guys come from families where there's domestic abuse, cyclical kind of cycles of abuse, probably within the last 5 generations at least. 2 or 3 of the couples have dealt with some sort of abuse, some sort of swindling, some sort of loss, financial or otherwise, because of abuse, whether it's abuse of alcohol, whether it's abuse of a person, or just really heavy energy when it comes to abuse as used with the tongue. And so speaking things into existence, speaking ill of people, speaking death, speaking misfortune on people is something that is coming up here. A lot of people may have had a lot of migraines, a lot of heaviness, mental disorders, mental health. There could have been points where there was breaks in reality. There could have been points where there were just a lot of mental exhaustion, a lot of exhaustion physically, a lot of hospitalizations, chronic illnesses that needed to be healed, a lot of money lost as a result, a lot of prayers going to certain spiritualists to fix it. It's an ancestral cycle that needs to be broken, and someone has to speak up. So for a lot of people, you may have a lot of throat issues. You may have a lot of issues with your lungs. You may have a lot of issues with just the upper portions, the upper chakras. It does affect your lower chakras, right? All of this stuff can heavily distort it. But I feel like a lot of the energy is focused more in your mental space. There could be something particularly that someone has seen when they were growing up that informed their way of seeing the world, which is generally like everybody, right? Even in this reading, I have my arms folded, and so there is a sort of blockage, a sort of wanting to make sure that one is protected. But I do think there's a lot of harsh words being said or thought. So with Lilith, asking yourself to forgive, asking yourself to flesh out the ideas of what was going on. There's no real cards of, this temperance card perhaps, no real card of dreams, progressions, things like that. It's very matter of fact, very in your face, very immediate. And so what has happened is, here it looks like it may not be that people in your family had dreams, people in your family had long-term dreams. It was more immediate. And it could be a sense of having to always start over, and there was a lot of distrust about that. So this could be someone dealing with the trauma of always having to move, dealing with the trauma of always having to start over, dealing with the trauma of growing up, particularly growing up in a particular space where you were always moving, you were always changing. There was something about your family that was always changing. The dynamics were changing. You could even have lived in a house where people were always going in and out. Someone is dealing with that sort of energy of not being safe. Someone could literally be in the middle of having to move and find a new place. And so this is kind of an ancestral cycle. This particularly could be people who are have had histories, ethnic histories of having to move and being displaced. There's a lot of anger about that. A lot of anger at having to give stuff up. A lot of anger about having to sell stuff that you really wanted. People throwing out shit that you really wanted. Throwing out shit that you really wanted and selling it for money. Possibly abusive. Someone may be really angry with their parents for selling something that they cherish as a child. There's a lot of that. And the sad part is it was never used well. It was to fuel other things. And there was chronic fights about money. So someone may be on the verge of perhaps starting a financial endeavor, and there's just a lot going on in the background. There's a lot of DNA regarding that. We have the Knave of Wands. I'm not going to keep him up here. With the Ten of Wands. So some of you may actually have grown up with parents who sold their bodies, sold themselves. You may also be into sex work yourself, sexual work. You may also have a lot of sexual repression, sexual trauma that needs to be worked through. Sexual exchange, sexual empowerment, but particularly there could be a history of women going down that line of work, and it may be something that you end up finding out if you do your ancestral work. You may find that a lot of the in and out was because of that. A lot of the financial problems was because of that. A lot of the abuse was because of that. And you may have to work through that reckoning that people used people in your family for that reason, and that they used other people for that reason. Because so someone could be literally doing their DNA, their heritage. They may be finding siblings. They may be finding out a lot of peculiarities when it comes to sex. Some people may be also finding out history of VD, venereal disease, things like that. And I hope that this doesn't come out that it's because you have one, that now you kind of start to unpack all of these things, but it could very well be. I don't know how to do this. Is it Saudade? Saudade. This is what it looks like. It is thought that the Portuguese first learned to speak of saudade or saudade in the 13th century. Ships set sail from the ports of Lisbon, and those left behind lived out their days scanning the horizon, longing for the return of their loved ones. Female troubadours sang of their saudade, the older spelling. They put older spelling here. Their wistful lyrics expressing an ache for distant lovers and the happiness of the past. Saudade is a melancholic yearning for someone or something which is far away, lost. It's always there, pulsing below the surface with its hopefulness tinged with grief. There is a vague yearning, yet it is interlaid with resignation and the pleasure of remembering past joys. Some emotions are so intimately tied to a particular artistic form that it is impossible to think of them without it. Melancholy in the blues, national pride and anthems. In the early 19th century, saudade found its modern form in fado music, meaning fate or destiny. Fado was born on the cobbled alleyways Lisbon's Alfama district. Its sobbing guitars and yearning voices evoke the experience of poverty, loss, and unfaithfulness of lovers. Fado is supposed to cleanse the singer of Saudade's bitter-sweet melancholy too. So to sing Fado is to matar saudades, literally to kill Saudade. So there's that. There's a lot of relationship patterns, but I think those patterns I've already mentioned. I'll hold this up for you guys so you can like pause it at some point. Those relationship patterns are there to be healed, dealt with. I do think that this is going to be heavily intensive work. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think that it will require a lot of capacity to forgive and a lot of capacity to physically heal the body, because if all of this trauma is kind of related to relationships and sexuality, sex, then you're going to have to undergo a lot of deconditioning in your body to feel whole again. And, you know, counseling and stuff like that hopefully works well for you. But it's a lot of burden. It's a lot of ancestral burdens. I feel like within the last 5 generations, there's been at least half of them that, or more than half really, that have had a bunch of troubles with this. And so perhaps to move on from that, maybe listen to Fado, maybe express yourself with music, maybe express yourself with art. But most importantly, I think getting real about how people related and your family would be best. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Lilith reading, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.